We finally have some more details and a greater look at Tenet, thanks to some newly released images along with an interview from Christopher Nolan and some of the cast in the latest edition of Total Film Magazine. We get some information on the production and the overall intent of Nolan with his latest film. I'm going to be discussing these reveals and, more importantly, outlining what Nolan has said about the film in his recent interview. Before I get into it, if you want to see much more videos on Tenet leading up to its release date, along with my Christopher Nolan marathon coming this June, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoy this video, remember to give it a like rating. Without further ado, let's get into the latest reveals and images for Tenet. Starting off with the new images and information in Total Film Magazine, we get a discussion with Nolan about filming the 747 plane crash scene. This was, according to the writer of this article, one of the first scenes they saw on set. Nolan discussed that the action in Tenet is something to behold, as like many of his other projects, he wanted to craft set pieces in reality and not have actors stand in front of green screens to try and replicate these moments with minimal effect. Nolan says that it's really a common complaint from crews that green screen days are just some of the most miserable days on set. You turn up to the studio and you stand in front of a green screen for days on end. I've heard that from almost every crew member I've ever worked with. It's not a complaint you hear on my films. I think it's why people feel very, very engaged. They're seeing what is being created for the audience. He goes on to talk about how originally the plane scene was meant to be constructed using miniatures, until he realised that doing it practically would be more efficient when talking numbers. It's the practical filmmaking that I've talked about a lot on this channel, and it reiterates how much Nolan cares about the filmmaking process and the audience who watches his films. For him, it's not about doing things the easy way, it's about doing things in a way which makes the audience appreciate the work and also what is right for the scene in general. There's further discussion in the article about filming the reverse sequence of this plane scene. As we saw in the TV spot last week, there was footage of firefighters walking in reverse as debris from the plane is flying back towards the craft. Nolan talks about how there was a lot of safety aspects that had to be considered while fighting against time to creatively film these shots. Nolan and Emma Thomas reinforce that their director of photography, Hoyt van Hoytema, helps this process to a high degree with his speed and being light on his feet. Thomas also states that a lot of the speed he brings to the process translates into the feeling you get when you watch the movie. However, the interesting detail that I picked out from this whole plane scene discussion is what Emma Thomas says after. She states that the scene is early on in the movie, while in a lot of action thriller projects, this scene would be the big finale. She continues saying that this tells you everything you need to know about the film. Obviously, there's a lot we don't know, but to hear this from Thomas and Nolan on the scale of practical filmmaking once again gets us more excited for where the film could be going come the third act. Moving on to details about the plot, which is referenced in the article, Nolan gives us some hints towards the genre and how this compares to his work on Inception. He says that it's a film of great ambition and great scale that takes a genre, namely the spy film, and tries to take it into some new territory, while also trying to take the audience on a ride they might not have gone on before, and might not be expecting. He continues, adding that it uses the conceits of the genre to do that. Not unlike the way with Inception, we took the conventions of the heist genre and used the audience's familiar connection with that to try and get into some more unusual, surprising areas. He does highlight, however, that Tenet is its own film and is meant to be experienced as a separate journey. While doing so, he clarifies his love for the spy genre, which we all know as Nolan fans is something that the director has held close to his heart, with an example to On Her Majesty's Secret Service. But unlike his previous work, Nolan says that this was the first time he hadn't shown the cast any other films to gain influence from. If you remember, Nolan famously screened Blade Runner for the Dark Knight cast to get them into a darkened world, which he presented with his Gotham. In Tenet, he didn't show them any examples because he realised that we all have the spy movie somewhere within our memory. He wanted to work from a memory and a feeling of that genre rather than the specifics. To him, this is a film which he has wanted to make for 20 years, and all of his previous films have had elements of the idea that he has been growing for Tenet. He says that it's about trying to re-engage with your childhood connection to these movies, with a feeling of what it's like to go somewhere they hadn't been before, and that's why no one has been able to do their own version of James Bond or another property. But for him, it's not necessarily about this idea in whole, it's about creating a level of excitement in grand scale entertainment that he felt from those movies as a kid, but of course in his own way. Nolan ends his discussion with his leading actor, John David Washington, highlighting how he's not the traditional spy protagonist, but rather one which is extremely well-rounded and sympathetic. He sees his character as someone who is willing to literally sacrifice their life for other people and the greater good, with the film likely beginning with an act of bravery in Washington's character dying to pass the test. Nolan's words make complete sense here. The question that still remains is the outcome, and obviously Nolan is keeping this and many details close to the chest. The other few points to mention are small ending quotes from the actors in the film, such as John David Washington and Kenneth Branagh, along with Nolan himself. Washington quotes that reading the script took him around 5 hours and he found himself flipping back through pages on multiple occasions. This is something that Branagh says he also did, and that the script was like doing the Times crossword puzzle every day, with quite advanced theoretical physics. This sounds like what we got in Interstellar, with a mix of real concepts within Nolan's usage of time. Branagh concludes by stating that he read the screenplay for Tenet more times than anything he's ever worked on. We're going to have to see how time-bending the film is when it comes out, but all of these small details have definitely excited me even more for the project. Nolan also does finish off the article claiming that he's finishing the post-production at his house, similar to his work on previous films. He also says that they are finishing the film and the film will be ready for whenever theatres reopen. Essentially, let's hope we will be able to see Tenet soon, as obviously it is looking more positive in regards to theatres being somewhat operational. To end this video, there were also some new images on Esquire released yesterday, which show another shot of Nolan directing Washington on set, a shot between Washington and Robert Pattinson, and also another angle from that shot in the trailer where Washington's character is held in front of an oval door by some henchmen. Overall, all these new details have me incredibly excited for whenever the film does come out. So that's what we got in the latest articles on Tenet, and it looks like Christopher Nolan's film is shaping up nicely for its July 2020 release date. I really enjoyed reading the Total Film article this morning, and even though we were never going to get huge details about the plot because obviously Nolan does it the right way in keeping these details secret, the reveals we did get were very interesting and solidify Nolan's ambition for his latest project. But let me know down below what you think of these new images and details for Christopher Nolan's Tenet. Also, what is your current opinion on the release date for the film? I currently think it's very likely we will see the project come July, and I'm happy that we have a director like Nolan who's actually risking his mainstream film to get a higher interest in audiences returning back to cinemas. Obviously, health is the priority, and Nolan stresses that in this article, but when things do start to restore, someone has to make the first bold move. I think we are seeing that with Nolan, and I can't wait to see this film on a 70mm IMAX screen. Either way, I'm interested to hear all of your perspectives. For more videos surrounding Tenet leading up to its eventual release date, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to give it a like rating. I will be covering news and topics for Tenet whenever new information comes out, so look out for my videos on these reveals. I will also be starting my Christopher Nolan marathon in the next couple of weeks, breaking down all of his filmography. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.